Alright, once again, we got the second week in a row where we have 5 and 1, so let's just go.
Works for me.
We're going to start with The Conjuring, which we just got out of like 10 minutes ago. So, right away, this movie had a lot of buzz because the early reviews were actually really positive, and then it came out that this movie's rating got a lot of attention.
Well, yeah.
Because it's rated R, but it has it has like the tiniest bit of blood, but no real gore. There's really no language. I didn't hear any.
No.
And there's no sex or nudity or any reference to it.
Nope, not at all.
The MPAA rated this movie R just because they thought it was that scary. That it warranted it.
Oh.
Well, I will start off by saying that I was very, very relieved. Like, well, I'll go into the, there are those, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are the people that investigated Amityville, that most people think are full of shit, but, I guess they, you know, have been doing this for quite some time, and I don't know their current status, but this was, like, back in the 70s, but, they're, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, who, I think Patrick Wilson's really underrated, because he's in a lot of great movies, like, Little Children, and Watchmen, and Hard Candy, and, but he never really gets any particular focus in those movies. It's always everybody around him. Because a lot of people think he's kind of generic, but I think whenever he's there, he makes work whatever he has to do.
Agreed.
And I always liked Vera Farmiga. But after having seen Bates Motel, I'm like totally in love with her now. I'll watch anything she's in now.
There you go.
And I hope she wins the Emmy, even though she's going to lose to fucking Danes. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
The real star of this movie is James Wan, the director.
Agreed.
He did, as every single horror trailer in the entire world now tells you, he's the director of Saw and Insidious. If you don't know he's the director of Saw and Insidious, by now you've never seen a trailer in your life.
That's very true.
So, he's done some, okay, I obviously he did the original Saw, which is great.
Yes.
Then he did, he directed Dead Silence, didn't he?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, that was not good.
No.
At all. And he did Insidious, which, you know, is your basic horror shit nowadays.
Extremely overrated.
But he went off the beaten path in 2007 when he did Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon.
Death Sentence
which is really good.
Yes.
So, I was wondering if The Conjuring was going to be... I mean, I know the good reviews had already come out, but I was wondering, are we going to get Saw and Death Sentence James Wan, or are we going to get Dead Silence and Insidious James Wan? This is kind of a James Wan we haven't seen before, because I've been talking about this a lot lately with some of the horror movies we've seen, and then when I did Scream and Halloween. The Conjuring does everything right that a horror movie should. Like, and just from the very start, like they did, I mean, it's kind of, as you pointed out, the doll in the very first scene looks a lot like the dummy in Dead Silence.
Exactly.
And yeah, the first scene is kind of your generic horror thing, but then we see that it's just some film that they're showing in a college lecture, like of a past thing they did. Which of course a lot of people, the skeptics, are assuming that pretty much every picture or every video released by Ed and Lorraine Warren is somehow doctored or fake. I guess
we have no way of ever knowing.
I don't believe in that kind of thing, but I guess you never know, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we go right into the Ron Livingston and Lily Taylor and their family with, I think they got 5 daughters, and I think Joey King's the other one I recognized.
Yep.
But that was a thing I wondered about. Like, 5 daughters, that's a lot of characters to keep track of, but every daughter has their little thing that goes on with them. It starts off with this great shot where it's kind of like a voyeuristic shot. Like, they don't leave the house. Like, you kind of expect them to do the thing where they look at the house and they go, hey, we're not going to get haunted here, and nothing bad's going to happen to us at all. But they let the creepiness set in immediately, because it's almost like they immediately give you that feel that they're being watched, because they do this shot where the camera is inside the house when they pull up, and we're watching them through the window. And then when they come in, instead of like following them outside and watching them come in, the camera just pans over and doesn't leave the house. And you really get that feeling that you already have that feeling that something's there with them in the very first shot.
It's a feeling of foreboding.
Yeah. And they do. He's just the great things they do with the camera in this movie. There's this when we first see like the house, the entire setting. Because obviously, you have to really know the setting of the house. Because it's, a haunted house movie, basically. So they do this really great, it's one shot, it's a Scorsese shot, all the way through the house. And we keep, we'll follow one daughter doing this, and then the camera will turn, and we'll follow another daughter doing something else, and it just gives you this whole tour of the house, and it's a great shot. And it goes all the way outside.
Reminds me a lot of The Shining.
Yeah.
With the camera.
There are some Kubrick shots in it. It's like, why wasn't James Wan's made like 4 or 5 movies now? Why hasn't he shown this before? I mean, Saw is pretty well done, but I mean, this is like,
it's a whole different level.
This is the way classic horror movies were made.
Even down to the title drop, it was very. The movie takes place in 1971,
and this is when I knew I was in for something great. This made me so fucking happy, I almost cheered. Talking about jump scares, I will say, despite what people may tell you, there are not that many jump scares in this.
No.
Like when like a score goes off or something, it's actually kind of, it lets you know it's there, but it's not like in your face or like deafening you. And when I thanked the Lord that he made James Wan. Ron Livingston hears something in the house. Like, he hears the TV, and then he hears, like, a banging sound, and he hears something in the kitchen, and he's wandering through the house, and he can't find anything. And the camera doesn't break. It's just one shot. Ron Livingston's coming into the, down the hallway, and he's starting to go up the steps, and the camera pans up, and his daughter's just standing there. And it kind of makes him jump back. There's no score.
Yeah.
It's just her being there that makes you... Which is something I always talk about, because every single horror movie that comes out, every single director of a horror movie you could find from this year, if they had directed that scene, we would have been right up in the daughter's face, and there would have been a really loud score.
Yep.
We saw it from a distance, and the way the camera moved, the way the camera revealed her from a distance is what made you jump back, and made him jump back at the same time, and that's what I'm fucking talking about.
That's effective right there.
Like, I wish James Wan had been sitting beside me this whole movie. I would have been just slapping him high fives every time something like that happened. Way to go, dude. And there's, that's what's great, is, this movie does a lot of building. Like, the entire first half of this movie is really quiet.
Yeah.
Like, in any other horror movie, they do a bunch of cheap shit. Like, they do a billion jump scares of things that aren't even, they're like, haha, just kidding, it's not something scary, it's your friend or the cat.
Yeah.
Or something. This movie doesn't even do that at all. There is not an attempt at a scare unless it's something that you're actually supposed to be afraid of. And that's what, they don't do the cheap stuff at all. And the thing about that is there are jump scares later, like things that pop out and shit. But the thing about that is, with all the quietness and all the build up earlier, the jump scares later are actually earned.
Yeah.
Like it's like if you want to do that, because here's the thing, is it adds to the flow of the whole thing, because you start off quiet and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And then, you start to hear sounds in the night, but still, nothing's really going on. It's just, building and quiet, and there's nothing jumping out at you, there's nothing screaming in your face or anything.
Yep. And
then the contrast of the ending, where everything is loud and in your face and screaming, it works for the flow. That's how you're supposed to do it, if you want to be loud and jumpy and like that.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to do it. Another thing that really works here is, yes. This is what I talked about with Scream, and I'm really, really happy. God, James Wan, you're amazing. This is great.
It is love letter to James Wan.
Okay, listen, this is great. This is awesome. Okay, I think it's Lily Taylor who goes into the basement, and she's walking around and she's trying to figure out what she's hearing.
Yeah.
And then from out of the darkness, you see a ball jump out and just bounces on the floor by itself and rolls across the basement.
That was cool.
So what's great is, in any other movie, that ball would have jumped out, and you would have heard a really loud score, and everybody would have just jumped out of their seat. But what was really awesome was the score comes after. Like, they do it's like a scratchy violin score. But it doesn't happen until the ball's rolling across the ball comes out in silence and bounces. And when it starts rolling across the floor is when the score kicks in.
Yeah.
And that's effective, and they should know it's effective. When the score happened, people were like, oh, shit's going down. But when the ball came out silently and just bounced there, you heard a girl in the audience say, oh my god!
Yeah, I noticed that.
Oh. This is such a breath of fresh air in horror movie land.
Yeah, no lie.
Why can't they all be like this? I mean, I suppose we can say, good on bad horror movies and crappily made horror movies, because it makes us cherish movies like this all the more.
I agree with that.
But, at the same time, if you're setting out to make a horror movie, you should be smart enough to be able to do what James Wan does with The Conjuring. I gotta mention that score again. The score is really, really sets a tone and isn't overused. There's a lot of quietness, but then when the score comes, it's like the opening, like with the Warner Brothers and New Line logos, the little score that was there was like, oh, okay, this might be creepy.
Yeah, just a tad.
So, another great scare is the scene you see in the trailer where the armoire doors open.
Yeah.
And the one girl sits up, and the girl looks behind her, and she doesn't see anything in the armoire, but then she looks up, and the ghost is perched on the top of it. Well, here's the thing: is this the woman in black did this really well too.
Yes.
What he did was, we didn't just cut to jump cut to the ghost, and it's just there and it's screaming at us. What he did to really I could just. Every hair attached to me was just going up, because here's the thing. Normally it would, be there.
Yeah.
And there'd be the loud score. And I don't remember a score happening. Maybe it did, but it was covered up by the sound of the girl screaming.
Yeah.
We see the ghost from a distance, and it zooms in on it. And for some reason, just the way that was done was...
It's quite eerie.
And you don't know when it's going to cut, either.
No.
And just, And that's another thing, is we don't see the ghost for a really long time. Obviously, like you saw in the trailer when they're doing the clap game, you see its arms. And that's the most we get of it for a really long time.
True.
Like the really freaky-ass scene where the door is open, but it's kind of... It's a little bit to where she can see behind the door.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying, she's waking up the other sister and saying, look, there's something standing there, and it's standing right behind you, and it's talking to me, and we keep cutting back, and we don't see anything. We just see the darkness. Nothing is back there. And it's scary as fuck.
Yeah, it is.
So, Yeah, those are a lot of really good scenes. I don't know what's spoiler territory and what isn't, so I'm trying to be careful. But, another thing involving the, obviously, you know, the ghost you saw in the trailer and in the poster. The poster is really cool. I didn't notice it for a long time, because I just kind of would see the poster in passing. At a quick glance, it looks like just a noose hanging by a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look in the bottom right corner, you can see the shadow of the hanging woman. And that's the thing, is the big thing is that the woman that is the ghost hung herself.
Yeah.
That's why she's dead. So throughout the movie, whenever the ghost is about to approach, you hear this sound effect that's the sound of rope tightening.
Yeah.
And that really gets under your skin. This movie is a rush.
Indeed it is.
They do really good with the period stuff. Obviously, it's the 70s. You have the clothes and the hair and the music. Like, I don't know the name of that song, but it's the song in the first trailer. The second trailer has Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man in it, which unfortunately isn't in the movie, but I kind of wish it was, because it fits. And they're even, at one point, they're watching the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, they all sleep together in the living room because they're just scared as shit of everything else in the house. Like, they think if they stay together, maybe it has a less chance of something going down. They use thunder really well.
Yeah.
Like, there's this really good... They give you the feel of an oncoming storm. Like, Vera Farmiga is outside doing the laundry, and you see, like, the dark gray in the sky that's really dooming, and, like, so you see it through the swaying trees because the wind's picking up, because you know that storm is coming. And usually you can tell the difference between movie thunder and real thunder, because movie thunder is like, you know, like, or something, and like an explosion. But
yeah.
I actually didn't know if the thunder was from the movie or from outside, because it sounded so...
Strangely enough, it actually did rain while the movie was on, but we didn't know this until the movie was over.
There's a really great scare that, once again, could have been a jump scare, but the way they do it is so effective. This scene where Vera Farmiga is doing the laundry, she's taking a sheet down, only the wind picks it up and she lets go of it. And it's like it stops and it takes the form of a person really fast.
Yeah, that was cool.
But then keeps flying. But then when it keeps flying, it hits a window in the house. And it's all in one shot, too. You see the empty window in the house, then the sheet hits the window, then the sheet falls and something's there.
It's like The Woman in Black.
But they don't do it as a jump scare, it's just the sheet falls and then just something's there. And you see, they might do like a little, just the tiniest bit of score, but it's after the fact. So,
it's an eerie movie, to say the least.
So, yeah, what do you, I still don't know, what do you think of Joey King as an actress?
I guess you could call it my bias. First thing I remember Joey King in that I can remember off the top of my head would be Ramona and Beezus.
That was her first movie,
yeah.
I think.
And obviously spoiler alert, obviously she's Talia in The Dark Knight Rises and young Talia. And she just did Oz the Great and Powerful earlier this year. I think
White
she's...
House Down.
Oh yeah, she did White House Down too. So, God, she is all over Regal right now. But no, basically... I don't mind her as an actress. I don't think they did that much with her character, though, honestly. She was kind of the daughter that had the least to do.
No, she had the most.
Really?
Because she was the one that was, you know, getting, like... You see in the trailer, she's, like, pulled on the bed. And
well, yeah, but other than that,
she's the one that sees the ghost behind the door. And
I thought it was the youngest child that was the one that was getting it the most.
Yeah, they do this. It's effective every time. Normally they wear down scares, but this freaks you out every time because they mix it up. The recurring scare is the little girl has the music box.
Yes.
And it has a mirror in it that like spirals, and she says, "If you look in it long enough, you can see my friend Rory behind you." And Rory is this, you know. He wears very, very vintage clothing, and he has a white face, and he just stands there and stares at you. And they keep mixing it up. Sometimes people see Rory, and sometimes they don't. And
Yeah.
they really... So, yeah, there's just... I do love the way... I mean, I do love the quiet, but when this movie has to go balls to the wall at the end, it really, really goes for it.
No lie.
And it's not about... I can't express this enough. I'm so relieved that it's not about jump scares. They go almost the whole movie with it. Like, there's like, the score is there, and it's effective when it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But in most movies where it would be, it's not. So, yeah. Like the, I kind of... I can't remember. I think Nancy was the one that was pulled by her hair. And I love the way it gradually built up. Like, in any other movie, she would have just been jerked by her hair and thrown around the room. And she was jerked around by her hair and thrown around the room, but before it happened, you just saw her hair standing up like static. And Joey King saw it and was like, Nancy? And then it happened. So,
I like how she solved the problem, too. How she solved the hair being dragged around.
yeah, there's stuff I'd like to go into, but I don't know what's spoiler territory and what isn't. But, yeah. And that's what I love. Normally, it seemed to have the crowd really engrossed. There was a lot of people in there. I really didn't think there would be this early, but there was. But the thing is it was really interesting to see that crowd in there because, you know, the way people are now, people go into... It's raining again.
Mm-hmm.
People go into this movie, you know, expecting the jump scares and, you know, the blah and all that. But it was very interesting to see them adapt to the kind of movie it really was.
True.
Because the thing is I don't think people don't go to horror movies to be scared. They go to horror movies to have fun because, you know, they can scream when a jump scare happens or they can grab whoever they're with and But people were genuinely creeped out by this movie. You could just tell by some of the things you heard like that. There were so many people getting up and leaving. Like some of the same, like there were two particular girls in there that kept getting up and leaving and coming back. I think they were freaking out.
It's possible.
They were trying to keep their cool and act like, you know, maybe, you know, oh man, I just gotta go to the bathroom a lot today. I think they were, I think they were trying to hide that they were freaking out. Because you could hear like sometimes when you're expecting a jump scare or stuff like that, you can hear a lot of giggling because people are getting nervous.
Yeah.
You didn't hear it. There was one particular girl that I kept hearing that from, and I think, you know, it wasn't like the, oh my god, this is so much fun, I can't wait for something, you know, to make me shit my pants when it jumps out. I think she was like really nervous by the whole thing. Because it would be when, you know, jump scares weren't even happening, something would just gradually be revealed, and just the way it's done is...
enough for her.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there are some things that get in your face and scream, but it's rare. And like I said, with all the quiet and all the build-up and how this movie clearly lets you know it knows what it's doing, if it wants to have a jump scare, go ahead. Just, you know, it didn't overuse them. I can only think of maybe 2 actual jump scares, maybe. So, yeah. If you want to see a horror movie or have been waiting to see a horror movie that's worth seeing, this would be the one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take your friends who love horror movies too and show them what they've been missing in the movies that they generally tend to go to. This will show them something different and probably something they're not expecting that will affect them.
It might make them open to go rewatch horror movies of the past that actually knew how to get it done.
And realize the mediocrity of the way most people make horror movies nowadays.
Yes.
Because, like, I would love for them to, like... What's a recent horror movie that was really bad? We'll say, there's so many. We'll say The Last Exorcism 2.
That's a good one.
Or Dark Skies. We'll say Last Exorcism was worse, so we'll say that. let's say you have your friend that would probably normally get a kick out of Last Exorcism 2.
Mm-hmm.
But take them to The Conjuring first. If you take them to The Conjuring and they feel that real horror in the way it's supposed to be, and then take them to The Last Exorcism 2, they'll probably hate it.
Good possibility.
If they've experienced The Conjuring first and know what it's supposed to be like. Because The Last Exorcism 2 is just the biggest load of shit.
Yeah, the first one was really good, though.
Yeah. The first Last Exorcism was more like this. So, that about covers. Anything else to go into, I think, would be spoiler territory. So.
Yeah, I don't know what I can say and what I can't say.
I will say, well, it's fairly early. I guess if you're worried about spoilers, then just, you can either leave the video or skip ahead to R.I.P.D, but, I'm assuming you're gone, and if you're worried about it. Okay, this movie has 3 things in it.
Mm-hmm.
You have haunted house movies, like Paranormal Activity. You have exorcism movies, like The Exorcism of Emily Rose or The Last Exorcism, and so on. And you have witch movies, like, I'm drawing a blank. Well, just because I can't think of another one off the top of my head, we'll say Lords of Salem.
Yeah.
Okay, The Conjuring is a haunted house movie, a witch movie, and an exorcism movie.
Yep.
Just, they bring all this shit together into one magnificent climax.
Yes.
And that's very interesting, the whole combining genres. Because it's usually one or the other or the other.
Yeah.
This is all of them. We start with haunted houses, then it's haunted houses haunted by witches, then it's to get rid of this witch in this haunted house, we gotta exorcise it. So, yeah, this movie's a fun time.
I went into this movie not thinking I was going to like it at all. I've had this problem a lot this year. There's been a couple of movies I've been like, there's no way I'm going to like this. There's no way I'm going to like this. And when a movie makes me like it, when I know I'm going to hate it, that is the mark of a good movie to me. Because I did not think I was going to like this movie. I wasn't dreading this movie. I just didn't want to see it. I didn't care.
You were scared.
I wasn't as no.
No. Every time that trailer came on, I sensed an uneasiness. And while we were seeing in the theater, I sensed an uneasiness.
Probably half asleep. That's probably the reason why.
Okay.
But the thing is, no, I'm not a horror guy. And as you guys know out there, I'm not a horror guy at all. But, I mean, I'm starting to get into stuff like this. And it's just like, and I haven't seen, like, the original horror movies either. I mean, I've only seen The Exorcist once. So, I mean, I know a lot of you guys would probably, like, have it on, like rewind and watch it all the time.
The original Exorcist I've only seen once.
Really?
But it's one of those things where I've always planned on going back and watching it, but it's like, well, maybe, I got something better to do, because maybe I don't want to relive that again just yet.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like when we watched Sinister. I was like, I love Sinister, but the second I got out of Sinister, I wanted to get the hell out of there. And it's weird because it's like usually we just sit and like reminisce and stuff like that and chat about the movie, wait for the LCD to leave, but no, I just want to get the hell out of there. Because it left me like that. Well, to me, that's exactly what The Conjuring did too. The Conjuring put a nice little air of foreboding in me, and I was kind of like, yeah, I might want to get out of here now. Of course, there was like a log jam of people, so we couldn't just get up and leave right away, so that wasn't a possibility. So I just had to sit there and enjoy what I just watched.
I can only imagine who's going to be in there at 7 and 10 if one had that many people.
That's going to be nuts. It's a wild ride. I agree with that completely.
Alright, so yeah, that's a clear recommendation, unless you're deaf.
Without question.
Alright, let's go to the next movie. I was a little worried at the last minute, because R.I.P.D, not many people had faith in it, apparently. And here's the thing. There tends to be, like, if you don't want spoilers to get out, or if you don't want bad reviews to get out too early to kill your buzz, you do an embargo that holds back. Nobody can post. Critics will see the movie, but they can't talk about it or post a review until the embargo lifts.
We did that with Oz, actually.
Well, here's the thing. R.I.P.D didn't just have an embargo, really. It came out today, and they screened it for critics last night at the last minute.
So in some places, we watched it at the same time the critics were.
Yeah. So, but, you know, here's the thing. I actually like this movie quite a bit.
It's really funny.
But the thing is, we were only in there with maybe 4 other people. Oh, no, there were 4 people towards the front, and then the other 2 guys. So there were 6 people.
6 people, yeah.
And everybody seemed to be, you know, enjoying themselves.
Definitely.
I don't know. I was having a problem there at the beginning because, you know, I liked the opening, and the 3D is really good.
Yes,
like
completely.
it's what you imagine. Like, they don't do an overabundance of throwing stuff at you, but every now and then, you know, like a monster will scream and its saliva will come out at you. But they do the submersive thing too, and it looks really good. And people were comparing it to Men in Black.
Yes.
Which, you know, it is a lot like. But the thing is R.I.P.D. has its own distinguished style. Like,
agreed.
You know, the camera movements and the way it looks, and the way it's, you know, the structure. Yeah. Just, it's really got its own thing going on, which, you know, is good. Which was really, really bugging me, because I was sitting there in the theater going, alright, I know critics are going to hate this movie.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how good it is from here on, critics are going to hate this movie, because they were programmed to. And I was trying to think why they would. Like, I know I should have been focusing more on the movie, but I was focused on the movie. It was fine. But,
yeah.
I could not get it out of my head trying to figure out what critics were going to say that they thought was bad. Because I don't know what that'd be. Because I don't know. So, with that being said, I'll talk about why I like it so much. I was a little worried about Ryan Reynolds because he's kind of...
That's the Ryan Reynolds shtick.
His well is dry. And has been for a while. His well was dry pre-Green Lantern. Which...
Buried? That was a little before Green Lantern.
Buried's pre-Green Lantern, yeah. Well, you know, he has some great dramatic performances like Buried and Smoking Aces and Amityville Horror, really.
Yeah.
Ooh, we're back.
Coming back full circle. It only took 30 minutes. Ish.
But, you know, he's fine. But the thing about this movie, of course, is one of my all-time favorite actors since always has been Jeff Bridges.
Yes.
And, you know, he is kind of doing Rooster Cogburn again.
No lie.
He even says when he died, he was a marshal in the 1800s. Maybe, you know.
It's a very good possibility.
And we know how. He says he died in the middle of a desert and a buzzard ate his face.
I love his name, though. His name is priceless. Roy Cephas.
Obviously, we know Rooster Cogburn, you know, got really old and died.
Yeah.
But, you know, regardless.
Same voice, same look.
I can't help but wonder if it was kind of... Well, this is based on, like, a graphic novel, I think.
Correct.
So, you know, I don't know.
2 movies based on graphic novels this week.
I don't know what was, I barely knew about this novel. I only knew the plot, so I don't know what's the same and what's different, or if what kind of following this novel has, but, when I first heard the plot, I imagined something a lot darker.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why this movie jumped out at me, because these movies have nothing in common. And the plots have absolutely nothing in common, so I don't know what made this go through my mind, but,
You've piqued my curiosity.
When I first heard the plot of R.I.P.D., what I imagined was something, like I said, not really similar, because the plots have nothing in common whatsoever, but maybe something in the same scope or in the same world as Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. I don't know why that movie jumped in my head when I heard the plot. I don't know, but I pictured something kind of with that tone. But it's not that at all. It's it's very heavy on comedy. It's as much comedy as it is action, if not more so. There's somebody in this movie that has a major part that's not advertised in the trailers or the TV spots or anything. So you may not even know he's in it unless you've, like, researched it. But, what we don't see is the plot actually is, Ryan Reynolds' partner is Kevin Bacon. And they stole these pieces of gold.
Yep.
And we don't know why or what their purpose is. But that's... I won't say because it's a plot point later, but the gold is important.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that Ryan Reynolds is going to turn the gold in because he changed his mind. He doesn't want to do this. He wants to, lead an honest life.
Place beyond the pawns.
So Kevin Bacon kills him.
Yeah.
We don't really... Reynolds says later that Bacon shot him in the face. That isn't true, but, whatever. We'll go with it. So then he goes in and we meet Mary Louise Parker, who is really funny. She's like the no-nonsense, tough as nails, yet sarcastic. I don't remember her position exactly.
Proctor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It says it right on her desk.
That's all that she's referenced, except for the very end. She actually gets a name, but I don't want to talk about that either.
Well, she does the kind of like the stern chief role.
Yes.
And then we meet Bridges, who is a loose cannon. He will shoot anything and does whatever the fuck he wants.
Yes.
You got to earn that. So,
such great dialogue.
And they do have I was wondering because Ryan Reynolds can be annoying, but Ryan Reynolds can also manage chemistry with the least likely people. Like, in Smokin' Aces, his chemistry with Ray Liotta is there. And it's like, when I think people Ryan Reynolds would have chemistry with, Ray Liotta would not have been my first choice, nor would Jeff Bridges.
Very true.
So it's like, when he's... That's what you need to do to make Ryan Reynolds work. You gotta put him with somebody that's kind of the opposite of him. Like, Ryan Reynolds just does his thing all the time. You gotta put somebody with him that counterbalances that, but can,
carry it.
Match him or go above and beyond. And that's why you bring in talents like Ray Liotta or Jeff Bridges.
True.
To kind of keep him in check. Because, in case you haven't noticed, movies where Ryan Reynolds is just kind of by himself, they don't work.
No.
I mean, and Waiting, kind of, but you have, like, Justin Long, and you have John Francis Daley, who barely gets a line because he talks so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of those movies that manages to... Ryan Reynolds can still do his thing, but they keep him in check. The problem is, he still has... When he's doing full-on dramas, he can be okay. Or when he's... Like, in Smokin' Aces, where it's... There's a time and place for his comedy, and there's a time and place for his drama.
True.
In this particular case, he still can't handle the drama that well. But, Bridges is always there to save the day if Ryan Reynolds can't, keep up. Let's talk about I was very worried about the trailer because that goes back to me thinking it was going to be something darker. I was really worried when I saw the trailer because I was like, I don't know, this is way too... I don't know, happy for a plot about dead cops coming back from the dead. One of the things I was worried about was the possible overuse of the Avatar joke. Not James Cameron's Avatar, but when they have their avatars, that joke.
Yeah.
Because Reynolds is, he's Cassandra's dad in Wayne's World 2.
Yeah.
And Bridges is that hot woman. I think she's a model in real life. But they do use that pretty well. So every now and then, they might do it a little too much. But I love the particular scenes where they do the Avatar joke without changing over to the avatars. Like, there are scenes where Jeff Bridges walks by and some dude will like whistle at him. That's a really funny joke. And, like, when Ryan Reynolds has a gun, he's holding a banana to everybody else.
Yeah.
They do kind of use, it's a heavy can wait kind of thing, where every now and then we see what, Warren Beatty really looks like. There's this particularly dramatic scene where he meets up with not at the funeral, but the second scene, where he meets up with his wife, and we see Ryan Reynolds, and of course, she's kind of panicking, because she's like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And there's one really quick cut of the Chinese guy, and then it goes back to Ryan Reynolds. I thought that was an effective way to use that, too. So we don't... They show us what she sees, but it's not, like, overdone, and it's not used for comedy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that actually wasn't a worry after a while. I was fine with it. Let's talk about some of the other people that showed up. Let's talk about the fact that Mike O'Malley is in this movie.
Mike O'Malley is awesome.
He has one scene, but he's important. He's Bridges' informant, and he hangs out at like a baseball field. And they do, that's pretty much it, but it's very interesting to see him in a movie again. I can't remember, I immediately think of Guts, or Get the Picture, or
Yes.
or Yes Dear. I know he's been in some movies, and I can't think of what they are now. But I will later, probably long after this review.
Or maybe I'll do it now.
I'll also bring up that I knew it because I knew his name in the credits, but
he was actually behind the candelabra.
Yeah, that's right. Here's the thing. This is very interesting. They meet this very interesting Deado, and he's this really big guy that's got... Ryan Reynolds calls him ginger sideburns, and he's got, the 70s sunglasses. You can kind of tell when he takes the sunglasses off. This guy is Buzz from the Home Alone movies.
To me, it looked like Michael McShane.
Yeah, a little bit. My vengeance. So yeah, it's very interesting. He's also going to be in Nebraska.
Nice.
So that should be interesting. I guess he's taking off again. He was in the Bruce Willis movie Surrogates back in 2009. He's also the babysitter in Dennis the Menace. But yeah, he's like the, I guess you could say he's one of the upper villains. He keeps coming, like they do the scene, like they're chasing him in the opening scene, and then they do the action scene again, and then he comes back towards the end. Mm-hmm. The effects are really good.
Yeah.
And there is I can't really say it, I'm trying to not say too much here, but, there is a twist that, is, I don't know, but maybe I'm just dumb, or maybe I just wasn't thinking, but, it seemed like it should have been obvious, but I was actually kind of like, that's very interesting when I saw the twist. But, I just wasn't, thinking too much about it, I guess. I'm sure critics will call it like, well, that's obvious, well. Normally I can point out obvious twists a mile away, but that one was kind of like, oh yes. I mean, of course, but interesting nonetheless.
Sure.
Yeah, it's consistently funny too. Like when you have a movie that's like an action and comedy, you tend to have a lot more comedy than action, and it starts to wear thin. But it's consistently funny, and I particularly love the scene where, most of the time there's that scene in movies where you kind of dread it, because, it's just there to throw in stupid conflict just to, make the movie go on just a little longer to pad it. Mm. So it's feature length. But what they did was, there is an argument scene between Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds where they kind of part ways. But the scene's really fun. Like, you have the accordion.
The squeeze box is priceless.
He angrily picks it up and walks away with it, and it's like... But yeah, Bridges is gold in this movie. Some people might think, he's overused, or he's too over the top, or... They might not think he's funny, but... I thought Bridges was hilarious in the movie. Through the whole thing.
Agreed.
There's the running joke where he's pissed at Ryan Reynolds through the whole movie because he loses his cowboy hat in the wind.
Yeah.
And he spends the whole movie trying to find another one. Like, pretty much anywhere there's a hat, he's trying it on. Like, when Ryan Reynolds is interrogating Mike O'Malley, he's in the background trying on hats, and they're like, I can't remember there. I think they're in, like, around the police station or something. There's another place with hats, and he's trying more on. Just none of them work for him. So, that makes up for nobody buying a hat in the open road.
Exactly.
That's a really old in joke.
That's funny.
From 4 years ago. And it's still running strong.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so, yeah, I don't know what the critics have said, but I'm gonna guess whatever they say is probably something you shouldn't listen to. I don't know why they waited so long. I don't know if it's because the studio thinks the movie's bad, or it's because they just think people will think it's bad, but I don't really see, what people could hate about it. I mean, I'm sure, reviews will say, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And it'll just be this laundry list, but in the meantime, not that that's going to change my opinion or anything, but I don't see what could be so wrong about it.
No.
So, fuck you if you
Yeah.
if you want to listen to critics,
Yeah, I was reading some of the reviews on IMDb, and people were just already bashing it.
There's a lot of people are saying they won't even see it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm sure, yeah, the trailer kind of undermines how good it is. Like, I could see by watching the trailer why you might not think it's as good as it actually is.
Agreed.
But if you just go out and watch it and you don't think about what other people are going to think, it's perfectly fine, and it's really fun and really funny, and
the 3D works really well too.
Yeah, that was a relief too. I don't know if it was shot or what. I would certainly think as good as it was, there's no way that was a conversion.
No.
Surely it was shot that way.
And I love the stop motion stuff too, the stuff that was in the trailer.
Yeah.
Where he's just walking through everything, it's stuck in suspended animation except for him. I love that stuff.
As usual, the main antagonist is a wormhole. We had that in Pacific Rim, we had that in the Avengers, but, whatever you gotta do. The plot, the way the whole plot comes together makes sense. So, I won't say, I'm trying not to get too into detail, but I will say, there always seems to be contrivance in how a plot gets to where it goes, and what is in the way of the heroes. And there's actually a moment where Bridges calls out that cliche.
Yes.
And they're talking about what's going on, and this particular thing that makes it happen. And Bridges says, why would anyone build that anyway?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have any problems with it.
No.
So, the critics can bitch all they want. I don't see what the problem is. I mean, every now and then there'll be a movie that I initially like, but then if I read bad reviews about it, they'll have valid points where I say, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense, or oh yeah, that's kind of, but, this isn't really that kind of movie where if I think, oh yeah, that's kind of a contrivance, it's not going to make me say, you know what, yeah, I suddenly hate this movie now. So, I'll read reviews and I'll see what they say. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So,
It's a good action comedy that you can go out and just enjoy.
Yeah.
The plot's not too hard to figure out. It's very simple. And it's really funny. And
it's always fun when Kevin Bacon plays a bad guy.
Yes.
Like, Hollow Man is awesome, and he's great in Super.
Super's a great movie that not enough people saw.
Are those the eggs that are brown on the outside? So, yeah. Anytime Kevin Bacon, which is really funny, because they just finished up The Following, where he was a good cop.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's like, what was his name? Ryan Hardy. It's like, he just went bad suddenly. So, yeah. I'd recommend R.I.P.D. as well. And speaking of movies I'd recommend, let's go on to the next one.
This is a good, very fun video.
We're on a roll this week.
Yes, we are.
And we're on Ryan Reynolds again as well. Obviously, we're going to go into Turbo, which I didn't have too much faith in.
No, you didn't.
Because it was just, you know, like... I didn't say, like, oh, man, this is going to blow. Or anything. I was just like, it just felt like another animated movie. But, there's a lot to like in this movie.
Yes. Especially the voice cast.
Yeah, a lot of people were worried that they might be relying on star power because, the poster is just, you know, the snails doing their thing. But at the top, you have the whole big cast list. It's like, you got Ryan Reynolds, you got Paul Giamatti, you got Samuel L. Jackson, you got Michelle Rodriguez, you got Michael Pena, Snoop Dogg, Maya Rudolph again, Richard Jenkins was in there. Just a lot. I can't even keep track of how many people were in that movie. There's so many. The rival driver, Guy Gagne, was Bill Hader. I didn't know that till the end.
Bill Hader doing his best Jean Girard from Talladega Nights.
Yeah, that character was great.
I love that character.
His, let's talk about Guy Gagne for a second. His sponsor is a drink called Adrenalode.
Yeah.
And it's an energy drink. But the thing is it says, like, this drink is not legal in Utah or South Dakota. It's like, it has all this stuff in it. And the funny thing is we see, while he's watching Gagne on TV, Turbo is drinking Adrenalode from a straw.
Yes.
And when he stops drinking, a little drop comes out, and it, like, sizzles like it's acid.
God only knows it's an energy drink.
But yeah, the reason, obviously, I mean, it is kind of, I didn't really think about it before, but it is kind of a clever little plot that a snail wants to be a race car driver.
Yeah.
It's just the absolute opposites, you know. That's normally kind of like a, well, of course, how cheesy thing, but Turbo is a really likable character.
Very much
even
so.
If he's voiced by Ryan Reynolds. Like, long before the day before we saw R.I.P.D, I wrote down for Turbo, I don't know, this Ryan Reynolds thing's getting a little old. But, you know, he brings it enough. And his name's actually Theo.
Yeah.
But he calls himself Turbo all the time. He has like a 5 printed on his shell. And his job is, they all live in this garden, and his job is to basically, if they get tomatoes that are like overripe or like gone bad, they fall down, like, they fall off where they've grown and into the garden, and it's his job to just kind of move them into a pile. So his life sucks, basically.
He gets rolled over a lot, literally.
And his brother, I didn't know he was his brother till halfway through. Like,
Yeah.
I thought he just meant, like, you know, brother, but he means legitimately brother.
Yeah.
His brother is a fat purple snail voiced by Paul Giamatti. His name is Chad.
Yeah, it is.
And he's really uptight. Like, he's absolutely content with leading him. Like, he even says, paraphrasing, my life is miserable and I love it this way. So then there's this kid. There's this kid on a big, what do they call him? The shell crusher or something.
Yeah.
He's just this kid on a big wheel that rides around and crushes things.
He's got sunglasses on.
So then, what happens is there's this big tomato that everybody's waiting to drop. So that's what they do. They feast on the tomatoes. That's why they get rid of the overripe ones. But there's this one that's just growing beautifully, and it's gigantic, and they're just waiting for it to fall.
Big Red, I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But when it finally falls, it lands in the middle of the yard. And, what was it? It was just, I think it's Paul Giamatti. His eyes get really big, and he just goes, oh no, it's gardener day. And we see the gardener coming off his truck with the big-ass lawnmower. So, they're just gonna they don't care. They're used to, you know, shit going wrong for them. So they're just gonna let the lawnmower eat the tomato and let it go. But Turbo wants to impress everybody, so he's gonna try and go out there and save it. But, Giamatti manages to save him, and he gets pissed off. So they have he gets scolded, and then Turbo gets sad and wanders off. And when he's wandering off, there's this really cool shot, and, you could tell a visual consultant on this movie was Wally Pfister, Christopher Nolan's cinematographer. And there's this really awesome shot. The animation's really good, and you can tell an Oscar-winning cinematographer took part in this. He's scooting along on a bridge, and he looks over, and you see cars rushing by, and it's like white and red the whole screen because you see the headlights coming towards you and the taillights leaving, and it's just really it's in the trailer briefly, but it's a really awesome shot. And as he's wandering along, he manages to come across an illegal street race, like, you know, Fast and Furious type shit.
Yes.
And he falls on top of the car, and he falls into the, what is it they use?
Nitrous oxide.
Like when the cars need a boost.
It's always blue.
Yeah. Turbo falls into that, and that's what makes him
Turbo.
really fast. And for some reason, I don't know, this is never explained, but, you know, you don't need it to be because it's an animated movie and it's funny. Not only does it make him fast, but it basically turns him into a car. Because
it's weird.
He has an alarm, he has a tail light, like he says, ooh, that's new. And when his eyes hit together, he plays music.
They're also like headlights, too, at one point. Because he blinds Giamatti a couple of times.
So, that's, in case I was wondering going in, that if you were wondering, that's how he turns into what he is. So, a freak of nature, as Giamatti calls him.
Yeah.
Going back to the garden, I also forgot to mention, there's this really funny recurring joke where, like I said, they already know their lives suck, and they're very content now with their lives sucking, because they're just used to it.
Yeah.
So there's this joke where, it comes back a few times, where they're all in one area, and then a bird comes down and just picks one of them up and takes off with it, and they all just go, every time that happens.
My favorite part is actually when they're having their morning meeting, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, how you guys doing? Swoops in, and it's like,
I think I want to say his name, I'm not positive, I want to say his name was Jerry or something.
No, it was Jerry.
So they say like, well, there goes Jerry.
There goes Jerry.
And then they just go back to what they were doing. And this happens every morning. It's like a ritual. But then while Turbo is out running around, Michael Pena plays Tito, who is he runs this taco stand with his brother.
Dos Tacos. Dos Brothers Tacos.
Yeah, Dos Bros Tacos. It all rhymes.
Yeah, Dos Bros Tacos.
So, and they do this snail racing thing. And they have a whole crew. There's Samuel L. Jackson, there's Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg's snail has fuzzy dice around its neck.
Purple fuzzy dice around its neck.
He's the one in the trailer that says, it's like everything's in slow motion, and they all go, whoa.
Yeah.
There's the girl that's voiced by Maya Rudolph. There's the White Shadow guy. The White Shadow guy got old. They used that joke too much.
Yeah.
But I did like when, you know, he just kind of backs into the shadows, and he's like, I still see you. All the trailer shit.
Yeah.
If White Shadow had only done the trailer stuff, he would have stayed funny, but after a while, even the kids didn't find him funny after a while in the movie.
No. They didn't get restless like it did in Epic.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, Turbo convinces Tito that he wants to be in the Indy 500. And everybody in like, they actually call it out on the absurdity. Like, he actually gets accepted into the Indy 500, and Giamatti's there to say, Giamatti's a slug and a snail, and he's saying, has the whole world gone crazy? So, and then it goes from there. Yeah, there is a lot of stuff to like about this movie, and it's hilarious throughout.
Yes.
But still has its touching moments too. Like, there's this particularly, it doesn't really let on that it's deep, but it's deep if you think about it. There's this parallel scene going on where you have Giamatti and you have Turbo, and then you have Tito and his brother. Mm-hmm. And they're both pretty much having the same argument at the same time.
Yeah.
In the same place.
And they're finishing each other's sentences the way that the show that's being shot.
And then finally, Tito's brother says this one thing, and Giamatti finally just turns to him and says, yeah, what he said.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah. So if you want to, you know, take kids to this movie, this is probably, like, the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Like, there was, like, a 3-year-old in there that could barely comprehend anything, and it seemed to be enjoying itself.
Totally.
With the whole thing. And then, there's little things every now and then, and they're like, I don't know if you noticed this, it went by so quickly. I kind of went, ha ha, but I seem to be the only person that noticed. During the race at the end, they play Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
And that, it seemed to be Eye of the Tiger pushed together with, like, this rap song. It was weird.
It was Eye of the Tiger with, it's either DMX or 50 Cent, I don't know which one it was, but I think it's DMX. It's like a mashup. It's DMX and Survivor.
Well, clearly it was Eye of the Tiger, and what happened was, as soon as Eye of the Tiger started, the announcer said, well, it looks like our racers are off to a rocky start.
Yeah, they did.
I was like, I don't even, like, I actually had to sit there and think about whether it was an intentional reference or not. Because I did it just now to give you the point, but when he said rocky, he didn't put emphasis on it. He just said, well, our racers are off to a rocky start.
It's Chris Parnell, so he didn't have to put emphasis on it. Yeah, it was Parnell.
I'm not his biggest fan.
I know you're not.
Well, regardless, I'd also like to point out something very strange. Another thing I didn't know till the credits came up. There were 3 writers on this movie, and one of them was Robert Siegel. Robert Siegel is the writer of The Wrestler.
Yes.
And he wrote and directed Big Fan.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Very interesting.
But, yeah, this movie has, a lot of funny scenes and a lot of greatly animated scenes. Like the scene where, Turbo's under the impression that he's faster than all the other snails. But then they do, like, Jump Around by House of Pain comes on.
That was awesome.
And they actually beat him because he panics. So yeah, there's, I will say it was, as you said, Gagne is a lot like Jean Girard.
Yes.
Without giving away too much, I will say...
even more so than you'd expect.
The ending of this movie is the ending of Talladega Nights all over.
Yes.
The end of the race. So, yeah. Do you want to add anything?
It's not, like, okay, animated movies could go either way when it comes down to it. Sometimes I'm really amped for them. Sometimes I'm kind of half and half on them, and sometimes I could care less. But it's not very often you get an animated movie that's really absolutely horrible, though. Which is a good thing. The genre works really well because you don't have anything that's bad. You have everything's just okay. Or absolutely outstanding. There's no in between. So, I like this movie. I love the way the voice cast was used. I laughed out loud during the whole thing. I liked the way the music was done. I liked the way it looked. I mean, it visually looked amazing. I don't know how well it would have done in 3D or not, but, I mean, it would have been converted 3D, but still.
Yeah, we were I don't think it would have made much of a difference.
No. And the Indy 500 scenes, my God. I mean, it literally was like an animated version of the actual Indy 500. Everything was identical, and so much product placement. I felt like I was watching Logorama again.
That's what you do when you have sponsors for things.
Yeah, but it's like, unlike
there's another shot I was thinking of where I can't remember where it is exactly, but we see an overhead shot of a city, and it looks like it's animated clearly, but it looks like a real overhead shot of a real city. Yeah.
Yeah, the Indy 500 scenes they look very realistic, and I like that about animated movies, because you can actually go that route, and sometimes you don't know if it's real or if it's animated, and I like that.
So, yeah, everybody should get enjoyment out of this, I would think.
I don't see a reason why you wouldn't like it, honestly.
So, yeah. Once again, we're on a roll this week.
Yeah.
Actually, for people who love our negative reviews, sorry about your luck this week.
Don't worry, we got the Smurfs in a couple weeks. You're good.
Okay. Should we go on to Red now?
Sure.
Alright. Let me start off by saying I'm not a fan of the first Red at all.
No, you are not.
I thought it just had so much waste in it. Like, okay, you had kind of a good villain in Carl Urban.
Yep.
Then he went good.
Yeah, of course.
You got a great choice of villain in Richard Dreyfuss. He has 2 scenes, and he's not remotely threatening.
No.
Well, I mean, I guess he's not supposed to be threatening because he's like he's like the businessman kind of villain.
Mm.
So, I mean, he was great in that one scene. when they had him tied to the chair. But no, I just did not like Red at all.
No.
So, and the plot was, I don't know what the fuck was going on with that plot. It was just, I don't know.
I remember liking it, but I can't remember. I couldn't tell you exactly why I liked it.
It ran for picture at the Globes, which is
it
ridiculous.
did.
That was the same year that was the same year they ran Burlesque, though. So that's Burlesque and The Tourist. So.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
So just fuck the Globes that year altogether.
Most of the times you can say that though.
Red added to that. Just in the comedy category.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much just the joke.
But this one's better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love this one, but it's significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring in new people like Anthony Hawkins, and you have, on a sad note, I was reading that Ernest Borgnine was the records guy in the first one.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he actually said the words, "If I'm still around for the sequel,
Man.
I'm ready." Unfortunately, he wasn't. But so that sucks. On top of that, despite turning around and helping them at the end, we never hear anything about Carl Urban in this one.
No.
He's just gone, I guess. Our villain for Red 2 is Neil McDonough, who is great. He's pretty much every time I'm gonna say he was this and this. It's always he was the villain in this movie. He was the villain in this movie. He was the villain in this movie.
Yeah.
He's the villain in Walking Tall.
That's what I was trying to think of the other day.
He is he's Lieutenant Estridge in the Hitcher remake.
Mm-hmm.
He's the he's Bison in Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. Chun-Li, I'm sorry.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know. But he's got a lot of good parts too. He's Dum Dum Dugan in Captain America as well. Yep. He's been everywhere, and he's cool. I like him. So I was pleased because I didn't know who the villain was when we came in, and then Neil McDonough walks in and just shoots somebody immediately, and I was like, "Oh, Neil McDonough's the villain. Okay, I'm on board."
Not bad at all. That's a great choice.
So
he's proven.
So I was feeling a little better because the second trailer was funny. So I was like, okay, maybe it'll be funny.
The Costco trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything, but like Malkovich with the drink, and then he just drinks.
Malkovich is gold.
So, yeah, the opening is, okay, let me go into that too. Let me just talk about how much I hate Red even more. Okay, you remember that really, really fucking dumbass thing they did? They wasted Morgan Freeman like I've never seen wasting an actor in my life.
No lie.
Okay, at the very beginning of Red, Morgan Freeman fakes his death. Then as soon as he's done faking his death and comes out of hiding, they kill him for real.
Yep.
And there was no point to the whole thing.
Not at all.
Okay, well, this movie also starts with Malkovich faking his death. But they make it funny. Here's the thing. When Freeman fakes his death in the first Red, you're supposed to think he's really dead.
Yeah.
Which, that's what pissed me off even more, was, Freeman fakes his death, and I was like, well, he's second credited, he's Morgan Freeman, they're not going to waste him. This was before Oblivion, obviously.
Yeah.
So they're not going to waste him, so I know he's coming back, and of course he did come back, and then they just wasted him all over again, for literally.
For real this time.
Malkovich, is not dead, but they make comedy out of it. Because he hasn't, despite the fact that his car exploded, he has an open casket. That should have been their first clue. So, Bruce Willis is convinced that he's not dead. And everybody else thinks he is. Even Mary Louise Parker believes it.
Yeah.
So, he kind of, pokes him and touches him. And then he takes the pin out of his flower and starts poking him with it. And he doesn't move. I was hoping they'd bring that back, but they never did. Like, Malkovich to come back and say, like, man, that shit hurt. But they never bring that back. He just comes back. And they don't do it ceremoniously either. It's like you're not stupid. You all know he wasn't really dead.
Yeah.
So then, I will say that this movie is fun, but much like the first Red, a problem is the story. it's the complete opposite. In the first one, it was way too complicated. But they've dumbed it down to the point now to where I feel like a kid put this plot together. Like, you know how when a kid makes little movies by himself with action figures, this would have been the kind of plot he would have used. It's like, Anthony Hopkins built this bomb 30-something years ago.
Yeah.
And something involved, like, there's a document, like,
Nightshade.
involving that bomb.
Yeah.
And what happened? That document ended up on the internet. And now everyone's seen it.
Good God.
And I don't know what, and that's it. This everybody knows about this bomb now. Okay. Another problem is Catherine Zeta-Jones, who has not... Catherine Zeta-Jones has had 2 good parts in her entire life.
Wow.
Traffic and Chicago.
Okay.
She's ruthless in Traffic, and of course, she's good in Chicago to the point that she won the Oscar.
Yep.
And, I'm fine with that. She wasn't, I suppose she wasn't unworthy for the Oscar in Chicago, so whatever. But I just am not a fan of her. Like, well, a lot of people say, she had the strong independent woman role in The Mask of Zorro, but even though, they have to have the scene where he cuts her clothes off and she becomes eye candy, but regardless, I'm just not a fan of her at all, and she doesn't do anything interesting, and hasn't for quite some time, and that continues here.
To me, that's how I see Angelina Jolie. Most of the time. Has a few good roles. Other than that, she's pretty much nothing.
Malkovich calls Catherine Zeta-Jones Bruce Willis's kryptonite.
Yep.
And they really needed somebody with more... I mean, people love Catherine Zeta-Jones as far as how she looks. I don't see, maybe back in, like, the mid-90s, but...
Okay.
Like, in The Phantom, maybe. But, I just don't get it. So, not only is she not interesting, but if you're going to try and pass her off as Bruce Willis's kryptonite, that's not working.
No.
So, another thing, I'm going through all the bad stuff first, just, because, the movie's fun, and it's enjoyable enough.
Yeah.
Much better than the first one. But, I gotta get this out of the way. This might sound nitpicky, but whatever. If you pay attention enough to the how movies are technically, like how they're made and how well they're made.
Okay.
All this stuff falls into it. It was when I started following the Oscars regularly, when I started really paying attention to these other things in movies like cinematography and editing. And production design, all that shit. This movie's editing is so horrible. There were just cuts. It was just like, what the fuck was that? Like, when did this happen? And continuity wrong out the asshole. But yeah, normal people probably won't notice something like that. But I couldn't help but not only in the abstract way too. Like, there were times where I noticed, weird ass cuts. And I was like, what the fuck was that? But not only that, the pacing was really off, which also goes down to editing. This movie is, an hour 56. It felt really long.
I agree with that. It seemed it was too long.
But, yeah, that falls back on an editor to deal with pacing.
Ouch.
So that didn't work out. I got it. There's something I need to touch on, but I'll wait till the end of the video because it might be a spoiler. Yeah, you can say it's a spoiler, but... No offense, but you'd have to be pretty dumb for it to be a spoiler, but just for argument's sake, I'll wait.
There you go.
Okay, I gotta be easy when I do this. There's something going on with Mary Louise Parker lately. Mary Louise Parker, she was promoting R.I.P.D, and she did an interview, and she said something about... I guess she spent a little too much time looking herself up on the internet. And I guess she's basically grown tired of the hatred and the bitterness thrown at famous people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And apparently she's going to stop acting. Like, apparently, like, every now and then she'll do something on the stage or something, but just the overall mean quality of Hollywood is getting too much for her.
Okay.
So, I'm going to be as easy as I can criticizing this. Because it's not, I wouldn't say it's her fault. I'd say it's the writer and the director. Because I would say she was directed to be this way. So yes, I love Mary Louise Parker. I absolutely mean no hatred or bitterness to her whatsoever. So please take that into account when I say this. What's her character's name again? Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah. That character is way too... I don't remember this at all in the first one, but for some reason, her character is way overly cutesy in this movie.
No, she was cutesy the first one.
I don't remember that.
The rocket launcher when she's sitting there with Helen Mirren. And
well, if that was the case in the first one, they've amplified it in this.
Yeah, I agree with that.
To the point to where she's almost like an oblivious child. Like, there's this... I mean, it's cute occasionally. Like, the very first scene of the movie is this really nice scene where it's just... They're in Costco, and there's this old couple, and they're trying to get a big package of paper towels off of a shelf. And she's just watching them from a distance, like, hoping they get it. And then when they finally get it down safely, she just has this sigh of relief. And then that's the introduction to the movie.
Yeah.
That was a nice moment with her, but after a while, she's just, it's too much. So I'm trying to think. She's just the whole thing, just in general. It's like, and then there's the running joke where she's so sweet and sensitive. When it comes time to kill somebody, she not only doesn't kill him, she makes out with him.
Yeah.
So, I know it's supposed to be a joke because...
Trying to compete with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah, because she made out with Bruce Willis when they met up again, but she did it twice, and once not even when he was around. Because, he caught her doing it, and she was just like, well, I didn't want to hurt him. And he's like, so you make out with him? Malkovich is even off to the side, and he says, she's making out with someone else now. Yeah, I gotta say that. There's a really, really fucking funny line that Malkovich says at the very beginning. And it may have been the line, but Malkovich's delivery just sealed the whole thing, and this was just so fucking funny. It's before they realize Titus Welliver is in the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driving down the road, and her and Bruce Willis start arguing. And I can't remember what she said, but she said something to Bruce Willis that was a low blow. And it went silent, and Malkovich just goes, oh man, Mommy just slapped Daddy at the dinner table.
Yeah, Malkovich has some great one-liners in this thing.
Oh man. Oh shit. Okay, let's go into Hopkins. Hopkins comes in really late in the movie. It's like over an hour in when we made him.
Yeah. And
obviously he's the mad scientist that made the bomb, and he doesn't even realize he's been in prison for 32 years. It's not prison, but he's been locked away because he's insane. For the record, we're avoiding spoilers.
Okay.
As if that wasn't obvious.
Response, I told you so, so there you go.
But what's really funny was, he's actually really funny in the movie, because he's, I kind of, was like, what the fuck? Because, Anthony Hopkins is fucking Hannibal Lecter. He's got the creepy thing down, but when you imagine Anthony Hopkins as a mad scientist, I suppose that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
When you see the way he is, that's not what you expect. Here's the thing. He reminded me so much of, remember towards the end of The Chamber of Secrets, when Kenneth Branagh goes to do the thing and it backfires on him?
Yeah.
And he loses his memory and he's, overly happy. Hopkins reminded me so much of that.
He came off to me like Dr. Jimmy. But you don't have any knowledge of Dr. Jimmy, but I still thought it was funny. So yeah, they do actually, I was afraid Hopkins, when Hopkins got the with credit, I was like, oh shit, they're gonna waste him. No. But, Hopkins actually has a good part, and he's actually, once he comes into it, he's there pretty much for the rest of the time. Yeah.
I was afraid he was just gonna come and go and be wasted, so there's that. speaking of Harry Potter, they have this. There's this funny segment where they have to track down a guy named the Frog.
Yeah.
And we have no idea who this is. We have no idea what it is. We don't even realize it's a person for the longest time. It turns out the Frog is David Thewlis. And he's like this wine taster. And he's like really, like a stuck-up Frenchman. But then when push comes to shove, he shoots the entire place. But he only gets that one scene, and then Neil McDonough kills him. But, alright, let's go ahead and go into, there is a very badass assassin.
Yeah.
Like, they're called on to, obviously a contract is put out on them because their names were put in this document that's on the internet.
Yes.
So which they had nothing to do with. They're getting, set up.
Now they're nuclear terrorists, basically.
So, Helen Mirren's assigned to kill them. This guy's assigned to kill them. Everybody's... Well, this guy is he's like his own thing. He has his own plane and everything. And he's what they keep calling him, he's the best assassin in the entire world. The best contract killer in the entire world. And his opening really gives you a... Well, they don't really stick with this because he gets a real bullseye theme in the first scene.
Yeah.
He goes up to this, like a sensei type of guy, and he's handed a paper. And he folds the paper up into origami.
That was awesome.
And he folds it just right to where he can throw it at the guy and it stabs him in the throat and kills him. But he never does like that. I guess they didn't want to make him too much like Bullseye, I guess. But no, he doesn't get that creative for the rest of the movie. That's the only time. The rest is just knives and bullets. But regardless, well, the thing is they steal his plane, and that pisses him off and makes him a loose cannon. And that's just the whole thing with him for the rest of the time. There is a I Noticed You, and it's also, I think IMDb caught it too, but, there's this little joke where they gotta sneak into the asylum to get Anthony Hopkins. So, Helen Mirren goes in screaming that she's the Queen of England.
Yeah.
Of course.
I had a little condescending laugh whenever it came up.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Oscar-winning roles.
Yes.
So there's a little, like, I assumed that was intentional.
I'm sure it was.
But then there's something else I caught that was unintentional, which was Brian Cox comes back from the first one.
Yes.
And he has this, we won't go into it, but he's got a weird thing going on with Helen Mirren. Regardless, so you have Brian Cox and Anthony Hopkins in the same movie. Brian Cox was Hannibal in Manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
The movie that Red Dragon is a remake of.
Yeah.
And was the first Hannibal movie.
Yep.
It's the one that comes before Silence of the Lambs. Most people don't realize Silence of the Lambs is a sequel. And of course, if you want to tack that on, Mary Louise Parker is in Red Dragon. So you just got all kinds of circular, everybody knows everybody, everything comes together going on in this movie.
Very true.
It's just a tornado of familiarity.
Good way to put it.
So, I think that's... Oh, no. There's one big problem with this movie, and it's really distracting. This movie would be surprisingly violent for a PG-13, except for one issue. I'm not saying you have to be overly gruesome or anything. I'm not saying that at all. But, with all the bullets and all the knives and all the death going on, there's no blood in this movie.
None.
And I know, you don't have to be bloody, but I'm just... Let me give you an example here. There are a couple of times where a character is stabbed in the chest. But here's the thing. A character gets stabbed in the chest and the knife gets pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no blood on the knife. There's no blood coming out of their chest. And there's not even a stab wound. It's just like children playing. Like, ugh. And there is a particular character who is on a plane, and he's shooting everybody on board.
Mm.
Clearly, there is a gun sound effect, but here's the thing. He points the gun. He doesn't visibly pull the trigger. The gun doesn't visibly go off. He just points the gun at random people, and we hear the sound effect, and they die. And it looks ridiculous.
I agree with that.
there's guys that, you know, get really, really shot up, and then we see them laying on the ground. There's not one hole in them.
They're just sleeping.
Like, I know you don't have to have, you know, it's not necessary to have blood all over the place, but I mean, it looks ridiculous the way it looks.
Agreed.
So, yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get, like, a slow-mo shot of seeing, like, the collapsible knife go inside itself while somebody was getting stabbed. Yeah. So, you know, like, those little plastic ones you can buy for, like, 25 cents at a thrift shop.
Yes.
So, yeah, apart from all that negativity, especially compared to the first one, Red 2 is fun and enjoyable, even though it's not really great or anything. And it feels too long, and, you know, but, you know, it's funny. And, you know...
I mean, I don't know what the crowd would say to it, because we didn't have a crowd.
Yeah, we're the only people in there, just us and a movie screen. That took me back to Joyride.
Yeah.
Just the two of us in the windshield. Alright. Finally, our last movie. We're about an hour and a half in. Hour 25.
Close enough.
I don't know if you heard this movie or not. We're going right into Paul Walker.
Yes.
Segue right in. Okay, this is Wayne Kramer's movie. Wayne Kramer is he did The Cooler, which is that movie with William H. Macy, Maria Bello, and Alec Baldwin got a much-deserved Oscar nomination for it.
Okay.
And it's, you know, it's like he runs a casino, and then he falls in love, and then there's this, it's like a love triangle, and it's dark, and, you know, but it's really acclaimed, and a lot of people love it. But then Wayne Kramer did Running Scared, which is a fantastically, amazingly gruesome, over-the-top, insert genre movie.
Yeah.
Running Scared is like nothing you've ever seen before, and it's awesome.
Yes, it is.
This is Wayne Kramer's new movie, so needless to say, expectations are high. It's called Pawn Shop Chronicles. And it's got a very stacked cast. I'm trying to figure out if I should lay the cast list down now or just gradually go through it as I go through the movie. I'll do it that way because it's easier.
Yeah.
So I won't skip over people. Everything centers around this pawn shop that's run by Vincent D'Onofrio and Shy McBride. And they just sit in there and, you know, they shoot the shit until somebody comes in and pawns something. And every time somebody comes in to pawn something, it sets a story off. So it's a really cool... It's set up like a comic book, too. Like the credits are in the form of comic book, you know... Shit! What are they called?
What?
the squares in comic books that, like, set a scene. Those are what the credits are.
Comic strips?
And then they... Well, no. Yeah. Well, anyway,
Storyboards.
And every time a story starts, you see, like, a comic book page that has the title over it. And then the page turns and we go into the story. Kind of like Creepshow, Running Scared style. Creepshow is a crime movie.
That's interesting.
So, the first story is called The Shotgun, and it starts with Lucas Haas. And it's a really funny setup because he walks in with a shotgun, and Vincent D'Onofrio throws his hands up. And it turns out Lucas Haas is just bringing the shotgun in to pawn. Here's the thing, though, is, the villain in White House Down that wasn't James Woods or Jason Clarke, it was the other guy, the Mad Dog guy.
Mm.
Him and Paul Walker are bumbling skinheads. And Lucas Haas is part of their team, and basically their plan is to go rob Norman Reedus to make money, because they're all broke. Trouble is they were going to stick up Norman Reedus with the shotgun that Lucas Haas just pawned. So, they basically... Well, what happens is he's having this conversation, and then the one guy rides in and hits Lucas Haas with his truck, because he thinks he stole money from him, which he didn't. So they're just like, oh shit, man, well, we got to do this hold-up, let's go. And they just leave Lucas Haas for dead. And, there's a really funny scene where they're on their way to, yeah, it's got the perfect, you know, with how much violence is in it, there's also the humor. Like, obviously they're skinheads.
Mm-hmm.
so that I gotta use my wording carefully in public.
Yes.
But they're in the truck, and Paul Walker says, you know, I get why we hate black people, you know, that, and he says, like, they talk different, you know, they walk different, they make me uncomfortable, and he's like, this guy's a complete idiot, just so you know. And he says, but I've been thinking, man, why do we hate Jews? I don't get it. And he's like, man, just listen to this, okay? Jerry Springer, man, he's a Jew, I heard. And he's like, you know, if I saw Jerry Springer on the street, I'd kiss his ass and ask for an autograph. He's like, I have 3 Adam Sandler CDs at home, man. I heard he's Jewish. And then the guy finally just stops the truck and he's like, you know what, man? You cannot tell anybody we had this conversation. This does not leave this truck. I have no idea why we hate Jews. So, he says, like, man, that, like, they're supposed to have, like, really big noses and stuff. I got a friend's got a nose the size of this truck. He ain't Jewish. So,
that's great.
So yeah, these guys are completely idiotic, and they're there's this funny segment where there's funny joke where they have this. They pull up and they rob Norman Reedus, and they're parked outside and they're getting ready, and they're like, okay, put your masks on, and the one guy puts a ski mask on, and he turns, and Paul Walker is put. I don't know if it's funny because you know Paul Walker's underneath it or what, but. He's got this, it's like this giant clown mask, and it's like got this gigantic smile on his face, and he's just like got his head tilted, and he's, God, that's funny. And the guy freaks out when he sees him. And then there's this, we go back, and there's this, it's a recurring thing that starts here. This truck just pulls up, and Lucas Haas is still laying there covered in blood from where he got hit by the truck, but he's still alive. And the front license plate of the truck says, The Man. And the man is just this guy. He's got a cowboy hat on and boots. And we have no idea who the fuck he is or what his purpose is. And it's Thomas Jane.
I saw that.
And he's like a guardian angel. And he gives Lucas Haas a brand new shotgun to go do this himself. To take revenge on them for leaving him for dead. And, what happens in this scene is, I guess it happens every time the story reaches the point. Like, it's already in widescreen, obviously, because all movies are now. But the black bars come down even further to, like, make the aspect ratio even tighter for these particular scenes. It happens one scene every story.
Okay.
And it's, I guess it's a way to kind of, you know, show that the story is reaching, like, it's going into where it's going to start going into what it needs to go into.
Your peak?
It kind of sets the movie in its direction. It's heading. The story, I mean. And I won't say what goes on from there, but it's...
So that's the roller coaster in motion.
Yeah, all hell breaks loose when they get into Norman Reedus' place. I gotta break some news to you fans of The Walking Dead and, to an extent, The Boondock Saints. I guess The Boondock Saints doesn't matter now that The Walking Dead has been out, but, or made, but, I think on the poster, Norman Reedus is like the second name there. And he's one of the faces on the poster. Norman Reedus has one scene in this movie, and you never see his face. He's wearing a gas mask the whole time. So, sorry about your luck, Dale Dixon fans. So, then we go into the second story, which is very interesting. This is when... Okay. I'll just say it. Matt Dillon has just gotten married. And he comes into the pawn shop. But once he gets in the pawn shop, he's going to... they're completely out of money and they have to go on their honeymoon. But what they have to do is he has to pawn her wedding ring in order to get money to go. And then he's going to come back for it when they have the right amount of money. But the thing is he spots a ring in the glass case that's already in the pawn shop, and he recognizes it. And he has his new wife go outside, and he's going to handle this alone. He recognizes the wedding ring as his first wife's, and his first wife disappeared. So, and he knows that this is like a few states over from where she disappeared, but their names are engraved in it. He had a custom made, so he knows for a fact this is his first wife's ring. So he asks D'Onofrio where it came from. And after some convincing, he figures it out. And he goes on this journey to figure out, to kind of go in reverse of the ring's journey to figure out maybe where his wife is. And he runs into DJ Qualls, who is just this dopey chef who doesn't really know any better when he does something wrong. And DJ Qualls eventually leads him to Elijah Wood. And I'll say that's where he finds her, but I will not say what happens otherwise, because that's where all kinds of crazy shit starts to happen. I won't give it away, but this is where the movie just gets totally. It's got a lot of running scared in it, like the scene in Running Scared with the pedophiles with Bruce Altman and Elizabeth Mitchell. It's got a lot of that feel in it, but it just goes totally off the wall. I can't describe it. I don't want to tell you. So yeah. The third story kind of finally comes to a peak of the whole thing. It's the, in between the stories, we've been having these, an Elvis impersonator named Ricky that's played by Brendan Fraser has been popping up every now and then in the stories, but we don't know what his purpose is or what his purpose is gonna be. So he comes into the pawn shop and he wears this medallion that supposedly Elvis actually owned. So he pawns that, and that sets in motion his story, where he ends up... It turns into a deal with the devil story, which I know seems pretty redundant because, you know, Brendan Fraser making a deal with the devil was done in Bedazzled. But, you know, maybe that was a kind of a reference, I don't know. But, Brendan Fraser is hilarious in this movie, and there's this particularly funny scene where he first gets into this small town, and he has to get his sideburns trimmed, so they look right. But there's two barbershops right next door to each other, and he has to decide which one they are, which one to go to. And there's two different crowds outside, like, each barbershop has its own following, and they're just sitting there watching him to see which one he'll go into. And then, of course, you know, he goes into one, and he's not satisfied, so he goes into the other. And the other barber goes insane and, like, cuts the back of his neck and, like, throws him out of the store because he's like, you know, you already chose the one. I'm nobody's sloppy seconds. It's this weird but hilarious whole thing. And then that's when the deal with the devil stuff comes in. There was actually a, it was actually very interesting because, you kind of get a vibe of it because, in the Matt Dillon story prior, we saw Brendan Fraser in a diner, and he was with, this guy was outside, he was in a white suit, and he was handing out, like, flyers for, you know, like, have you found Jesus and stuff like that. But it was for a diner that, like, publicizes hot food, so there's, like, a neon sign of a devil in the, window, and there's a shot that turns, and you see the guy in the white suit, and you see the devil neon sign next to him, so it kind of gives you an early vibe. And that basically all, it does manage to bring all three stories to one point. It seems kind of like, there's one particular thing that you think happened that apparently didn't, that's kind of a fake out. I don't know. It's kind of hard to, like, but anyway, regardless, if you just leave your mind open, they do manage to bring it all to one point, all three stories. Mm-hmm. And then there's this running joke about, Vincent D'Onofrio tells this story about how there's a guy in a really big black truck that cut him off once, and he flipped him off, and the black truck basically marked him. So he's been trying to sell that car in hopes that maybe if he sells the car, the black truck can't track him down. And that is the last scene of the movie pays that off. So, alright, now that I've basically, laid the basic layout for you, let's talk about this for a second. I'll lay this on you first.
Okay.
The original director of this movie, before they got Wayne Kramer. Fred Durst. But for some reason he couldn't do it, but he still gets a producer credit. So, and Paul Walker's one of the producers also. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that's out of the way. Let me lay this down for you. You have 3 stories that interconnect. The first one starts off cool, but then gets intense towards the end. The second one is a story that starts off normal, then takes you into the bowels of a seemingly normal place and turns into a visceral, disgusting revenge type of thing. The third story is kind of biblically inclined, like the power of God and or Satan takes part in a character's life. Clearly, Pawn Shop Chronicles is trying to be Pulp Fiction. Not even shy about it. And it has that, it has that feel, like it even has the, moments of grotesque violence followed immediately by comedy. It's just totally, completely copied the style, which may not necessarily be a bad thing, because it doesn't do it in an insulting way, because I actually got a lot of enjoyment out of Pawn Shop Chronicles. I mean, it's not, near the level of Pulp Fiction by any means, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, it took a lot of inspiration. It clearly respects Pulp Fiction, which helps. So that helps it in making it an effective and fun experience.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't enough with that, there's actually obviously I can't confirm it, but clearly it's a reference. At the very beginning of the movie, Vincent D'Onofrio is talking about how dangerous it is to run a pawn shop because of, all of the criminals and the freaks that come in and out of there. And he says, my brother once opened up a pawn shop and they just found him dead in the basement one day. Of course, Maynard ran the pawn shop in Pulp Fiction and wound up dead in the basement. So, maybe Vincent D'Onofrio is Maynard's brother.
Good possibility.
But, so yeah, if you can track it down, maybe it might be VOD.
I think it is. I'm not positive.
And it was also released in theaters last week, I think. Mm. So, I think it came out with Pacific Rim and Grown Ups. So, if somehow you can find it on VOD, or if you're like in a theater near it, I'd check it out. It's pretty wild. And like I said, it's a no Pulp Fiction, but it has a respect for Pulp Fiction, and it does what it tries, to reach that.
Yeah.
And even if it can't, it's entertaining enough. So, next week is the Wolverine, Only God Forgives, and I might do Europe Report on it. Europe Report doesn't come out until August 2nd, so I don't know if I'll wait for that week or if I'll go ahead and throw it in with these. And I might also do a movie called Absence, which is I don't know if it's horror or what it is, but it came out the first week of July, I think.
Okay.
And I'll be able to see it now. So, I think that should cover it. So, until next week.